Hey, yeah, Scientology isn't just kooky and weird. It's actually way worse than you hear. To so many, it's just a joke, a meme. They don't know that it ain't what it seems. Do your research, Google their abuses, read up on them, hear what the truth is. There's so many allegations against them, saying they abuse elders and the children. Listen to the stories of Serge and Laura, of Liz Gale, Liz Ferris and Nora. Hear what they went through and how bad it was. And having a tissue ready is a must, cause it's bad. It's worse than we think. It isn't just a D-Lulu crazy thing. Take it serious and research Scientology. Look up their abuses and atrocities. Look up Lisa McPherson. Look up Stacy Moxon. Look up Snow White and Operation Freak Out. Listen to stories of those that got out. Look up what they said about Jesus and also allegations that they're racist. Look up how they bring people here on visas and they keep them locked up so they can't leave. And look up child labor and who paved that road. It was kids, if you don't know. And there's way worse they've been accused of doing to kids. Most of it very, very sick. Look up this stuff and then dig even deeper, cause the list is so much bigger. Stop looking at Scientology like they're just crazy. Read into it and learn reality. We can't let the abuses continue to be swept under a rug. We gotta learn and then rise up. We gotta bring everything to light. Maybe won't do anything, but it might.
What's up? I always get nervous starting these because I have no idea what to say at the start of a stream. But I have a guest today that's going to join us. Waiting for them I sent them the link. So as soon as I see them pop up, I have not streamed in a long time, so I forget how to use StreamYard. But I think that my mic is working, and I think that people are here, so maybe someone could give me a heads up if they can hear it. I don't know, but my guest said that they need a few minutes. They're getting ready, but they got the link. As you can see from the title of the stream, we're going to be talking about Stacy Maxon, who, if you don't know, that's the daughter of Kendrick Maxon, who, if you don't know, that's the stupid Scientology lawyer that assaulted my friend Audit LA. And he's sued so many people through the decades. And he's what do they call it? A vexatious litigant or whatever. But he's one of their main lawyers. Like, if you look up Scientology, you see Kendrick Maxon's name everywhere. And we're going to be talking about what happened with his daughter and how she, lost her life. And we're going to get into some other things too, depending on how much time we have. But dang, I kind of wish they were ready to jump on now, but this was kind of an impromptu stream. I was talking about this the other day, and then, I don't know, things just happened really fast, so I didn't really prepare. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but hopefully it'll get better once the guest gets here, because I'm just monologuing right now. But how do I see? I don't like StreamYard. If anyone can leave me a comment of something better than StreamYard. I don't like streaming directly from YouTube, and I do not like StreamYard. So if there's another one that is free or cheap, because again, I'm not really a streamer, I'm not gonna get a lot of use out of it. I don't want to spend a lot. But let's see. Hold on, I gotta reply to a text. I don't know if that's messing things up. Okay. So hopefully this is working. It says that I'm live. Um, let's see. What do I have in here? I have a lot of songs on here, but like all my songs aren't on here. Um, let's do the Audit LA song while we wait for our guest. If it decides to play.
She puts in the hours, she puts in the work. Whether it's city council or public works, or neighborhood councils, police or fire commissions, speaking her public comment is her mission. She streams it all for us to observe. We get to see and hear each word. She has a voice and ain't afraid to use it. And talk about persistent, she don't ever quit. She puts in the hours, she puts in the work. Whether it's city council or public works, or neighborhood councils, police or fire commissions, speaking her public comment is her mission. She streams it all for us to observe. We get to see and hear each word. She has a voice and ain't afraid to use it. And talk about persistent, she don't ever quit.
It's one of my favorite songs that I've ever written, and I wrote that about Audit LA. And of course, if you are not subscribed to Audit LA, go to her channel, subscribe. She streams way more than I do. Still, we're waiting on my guest. I was worried that I was going to be the one running late. And actually, I guess I was a minute late from what we said. But I'm trying to look through these songs to find a song that's like, I don't know, like something to do with Stacy Maxon, because I have written songs about her. Guess I'll just put this one on while we wait.
Hey, yeah, Scientology isn't just kooky and weird. It's actually way worse than you hear. To so many, it's just a joke, a meme. They don't know that it ain't what it seems. Do your research, Google their abuses, read up on them, hear what the truth is. There's so many allegations against them, saying they abuse elders and the children. Listen to the stories of Serge and Laura, of Liz Gale, Liz Ferris and Nora. Hear what they went through and how bad it was. And having a tissue ready is a must, cause it's bad. It's worse than we think. It isn't just a D-Lulu crazy thing. Take it serious and research Scientology. Look up their abuses and atrocities. Look up Lisa McPherson. Look up Stacy Maxon. Look up Snow White and Operation Freak Out. Listen to stories of those that got out. Look up what they said about Jesus and also allegations that they're racist. Look up how they bring people here on visas and they keep them locked up so they can't leave. And look up child labor and who paved that road. It was kids, if you don't know. And there's way worse they've been accused of doing to kids. Most of it very, very sick. Look up this stuff and then dig even deeper, cause the list is so much bigger. Stop looking at Scientology like you're just crazy. Read into it and learn reality. We can't let the abuses continue to be swept under a rug. We gotta learn and then rise up. We gotta bring everything to light. Maybe won't do anything, but it might.
I don't like how it like just automatically loops the song. That's kind of annoying. I wish it would just end after that. Let me check with the guest. I don't know how to do that when I'm streaming though, because I think it might freeze the stream. But I assume that I would go to the participants thing. Just the name, what's up? We're waiting for our guests to get here, and maybe they are here and I just don't know how to get to it. Like I always point out, I am not a streamer. I'm streaming, but this ain't my it's not my thing. It's not really my passion doing the streams. But um yeah, like I think I just go to participants and then when they're here it'll show their little picture. And I'm hoping that I have I have like the background cancellation for the noise, but there's a lot of fireworks because 4th of July and everything. So I'm hoping that that's not messing up with the stream and there's not all these weird, you know, firework noises. Um, oh, yeah. So if anyone didn't know, tomorrow, 4th of July, there's going to be an event that they gave Scientology a permit for, and it's going to be for the 4th of July. And I have no clue why they are giving them any more permits at this point. The last time they applied for a permit, they were denied, and then they they closed down the street for 3 days without a permit. They held that street hostage. You know, they had the barricades, you couldn't go down the street, but there was no permit. They illegally held a special event, closing the street down with no permit. And somehow they're still getting permits. I don't know how that makes sense. Somehow to them it makes sense because they did it. But I feel like if I were to have asked for a permit and Public Works said, no, we're denying your permit. And I said, F you guys, I'm still having my event. And then I closed down a whole street. You know, like I'm pretty sure that I would suffer some consequences for that. And the most basic consequence would be like a probation period with permits or not having permits at all, being banned forever from having permits. But for some reason, I don't know, they're letting them get away with it. I don't know if they, you know, are getting paid by Scientology or if it's a safe pointing, but whatever it is, they somehow got that permit tomorrow. But okay, I got my guest in here. How do I add them to this? Add to stage.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, awesome. All
And
right,
then
so
I'm
Henry's
gonna
here.
go live on mine. I was figuring it out, man. Technology sucks.
See,
But
I
there
probably
we
know
go.
less than you
Got it.
about this, so but I
Got
think
it.
there's
All
like
right.
a collaborate or something. I don't know what it's called, but okay. So I don't know where to really start. You know, the title of the stream is Justice for Stacy, so we're gonna talk about Stacy. But um I don't know, like for those people that are living under a rock and have no clue who you are, do you want to take a second and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So, my name's Andre. I run a channel called Audit the Government, and my website listed below. I also run where I publish a lot of different content, specifically in the name of overseeing government action to expose corruption. And for today, I imagine we're going to talk about a lot of different topics, but the one that you were mentioning has to do with the name of a very young woman who was a Scientologist, and she died while at the base in Hemet, California, that Scientology has, that people might know as Gold Base. And so there's a lot to unpack there. I'll just sort of leave it there. And I think the best way to do it is really just naturally field questions and just go back and forth. I'm happy to answer anything that you might have. If people in the chat um, come up with questions, I really don't mind either way. So we'll just take it from there.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna start with Stacy Moxon, and she shares the last name Moxon with Kendrick, but her married name is Meyer, right? Like she was
Yes,
married when she passed away,
that's right. She was, yes.
and that was like 20 some years ago at this point. Like it's a long time ago at this point.
Yeah, it was back in the year 2000, month of June. So we've passed her 20th anniversary already since she's since passed.
Now, like, to be real with you, the main reason I want to talk about Stacy is because Kendrick. And I'm just wondering, if Kendrick is her father,
Hmm.
how could he still be a Scientologist after she lost her life, in my opinion, because of Scientology? You know,
Oh, that's
like,
easy. That's actually really easy. I can answer that one. I thought you were going to give me a hard question. And I'd say that sort of tongue in cheek, but you got to understand the psychology of what makes somebody like Kendrick Mogson actually even have an interest in staying in Scientology. And especially from everything I know about his upbringing, his parents were not born and raised into it. They were people that joined and then did not stay, but he did. And his psychology, honestly, is no different than the people that you see that join the MAGA movement. Okay. These are fundamentally people that uh, want to shut off critical thinking so long as they get a psychological excuse not to turn on their brains, have somebody else think for them, and to take advantage of a position of power over others. And it has nothing to do with the religious aspect. It has nothing to do with any of what people ascribe to an organization like Scientology. It has everything to do with being a very insecure person, an insecure individual, and wanting to just simply assert power and control over others at any cost. And if that means sacrificing your own family member just so that you feel validated and you feel in control, then yeah, whatever. Your daughter, your car, your riches, your entire inheritance, who cares? So long as there is a guarantee that that black void in your life, right? This incessant need for somebody else to tell you that you're doing good, that you have power over others, and that you have a status. It's worth it. So that's he's really not special in that regard. But that's what it is. That's
I just
psychology.
feel that the majority of people that are listening to this would totally check out of Scientology if if it cost them their kid. You know, they would fight them after they lost their kid. They would use their lawyer skills if they were a lawyer, and they would go after Scientology for it. Or if they had all these secrets about Scientology, they would start opening their mouth and running their mouth about the stuff they know because Scientology cost them their kid. I don't see anyone listening to this except for like OSA people that are in here, but I don't see the majority of people listening to this as sticking with, the group, the entity that cost them their kid's life. That's just not a
Oh,
normal thing.
that's just not true though. That's 100% proven, in fact, to be the opposite of what you just stated. And we know that because we have firsthand accounts from people like Serge that shown the opposite. Okay. They don't care if it means sacrificing their inheritance, their children, so long as they get what is promised to them. Right. Let me see my mic. So long,
Sound
there we go. So long as they get what's promised to them, right? And what's promised to them is status, power, control. That's what it is. They don't care. They just don't care. We know for a fact that people have sold their kids out to Scientology. Scientology is not unique in that regard. The Mormons do it. The pretty much the entirety of, especially the Hasidic portions of Judaism, do it. It's not unique to Scientology. They will sell their kids so long as you get access to status, power, and control. So we have records that show the opposite of that. They'll do it. Moxon is it's not unique in that regard. Is it
okay. And
gruesome? Sure, but it's not unique.
before we get into like Stacy more,
Yeah.
I heard that Kendrick Moxon is OT level 8. Have we confirmed that? Is he OT level 8? Did he make it all the way?
Yeah, there was, I think the last one I saw, I know there's a public website, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a public website that's capped the OT levels of people. But I think last I saw he was 7, so I would imagine since then he's gone up to 8.
And then we always bring up Kendrick because, you know, he's causing problems right now, but there's also the mom. I don't get how the mom, but it's the same thing you said a minute ago about Kendrick. But the mom should have cared about Stacy, and why didn't the mom do something about it? It's
Well,
really
how
sad.
else do you know, it's going to sound crude to some people, but it's the truth, right? It's the truth is what it is, and so you do with that what you will. But women are no different than men, okay? Just because one has a specific phallus between their legs doesn't mean shit, okay? The psychology is what's key here. And just because she's a woman, right, and just because she birthed this child does not mean anything. It does not mean that she gets a pass. It does not mean that she's any less cruel. It doesn't mean any of that. In fact, I would argue it's actually much worse because generally you're supposed to expect what out of a mother? You're supposed to expect some sort of unconditional love and tenderness, and the want and desire to not put your kid in harm's way. Whereas generally, even though it's totally wrong, in fact, I won't ramble on too much about it, but generally people ascribe stereotypically what to men, that they're aggressive and brutish. And so you could say, okay, well, yeah, we could understand if Moxon does it, but no. Oh, it takes a specific type of woman to stay with somebody like Moxon. She too is addicted to that same level of control, domination, and power over others at any cost. Okay, this void, this unfillable void to want to assert control over others by means of status and power, that justifies everything. That in and of itself is a means to an end. And so again, if it's a sacrifice of a child, so what to them? That's just what it is.
And see, like, that's why I got into this, is because there's these parents that don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I hate that it's not just Stacy. Think of all the people that we know of that, you know, through disconnection or whatever, being declared, they don't have their parents anymore. Or when they were growing up in there, they got to see them very rarely. They weren't raised by their parents when they were there. And it's sad that, I don't know, these people shouldn't have, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
horrible how they treat kids, and that their own kids, they don't care about their kids.
Well, that's the real story here, I think. Again, I keep saying this because it's true. Scientology is not unique. They're not special in this regard. They're just another group of crazy, fanatical people hopped up on their special toxic dose of whatever the hell they want to call a religion, that thinks gives them special privilege and right to kill others, to sacrifice others, to harm others, so long as they are vindicated because whatever religious texts and whatever delusions that they say that they espouse tell them to do so. And it's not unique to them, but it's a big problem, and it's seen throughout America. You can see it with families of billionaires where they will bring up, I mean, Trump is a great example of that. Barron Trump, a lot of people understandably would say, well, we should give Barron the benefit of the doubt. He's a young kid. He's at that point was not a legal adult just yet. Maybe he'll turn out different. Maybe he won't be like his scumbag parents, and maybe he will become better than the environment that he's in. Nope. In fact, the guy is the main benefactor and the guy that Trump is using to launder all of the oil shorting that has happened as a result of the Iran war and the various crypto fraud that the whole family has been running and giving it to him. We've the one guy, a big YouTuber, CoffeeZilla, has actually tracked the crypto wallet back to Barron Trump, where the various Trump crypto frauds have been directly gone to that wallet, and the timing of the trades has been such that they were executed just right before, literally like mere seconds before the rug pull happened. And the only way you can do that is if you have somebody on the inside who is executing those orders and knows that shit's about to go down. So that's what it is. It's not unique in that regard, and it is very, very common. And I think that is probably the biggest takeaway from this for people, to use it as a major cautionary tale, but also as a sort of unifying front, right? It's not just Scientology, it's everywhere. And there's a big relief to come with that, because the outcomes are the same. It's just the justification for what their source of the justification is the only thing that really changes, right? This group says, well, we have Dianetics as our Bible that gives us the justification to do all this harmful shit, and then another group says, it's Leviticus, or another group says whatever. That's they're all the same. The recipe is really the same, if you really take a step back and look at it all. But I agree with you. It's very prevalent everywhere.
Okay, so let's focus back on Stacy, because I keep reading different accounts of what happened, and you actually did some legal stuff and found out more details about what happened. Does it say anything in because some people say it was, how do I say this on YouTube? Am I allowed to say that word on there? I guess it's not monetized. Some people think that it's suicide, and some people think that she was killed, and some people think that it was an accident. Now, from what you've been able to look into, because you have more info than what was public at first, like you went and did some legal stuff and looked up more into it, like what is your take on it?
So the story of what actually happened is the following. The way I got this information is I filed a lawsuit against the Riverside County Sheriff's Department because I submitted a records request to get the details on what happened during that day. And the story is as follows. One morning, as usual, Stacy was going to conduct her daily duties as a general worker of Hemet, and she magically somehow was found at the bottom of a vat. And this vat is something that you would see underground, where an electrical substation would be stored, especially in a place like California, because to prevent weathering, typically, because it's so goddamn hot, especially out in Hemet.
It would be like deep down, right? Like it wasn't just like
10
you
actually
feet down, right? Like
you actually have to climb down there, but the cover to the vat is actually protected by a giant manhole cover. And to not go too far off into nerd world, a manhole cover is just a giant freaking chunk of metal, and the way they design it is the weight of the metal is not evenly distributed, and that's so that you can't just drag it out by sheer force of will.
and a manhole is like, it's like a sewer, right? Like when you're driving down the street and you see the circles and all that, like those big heavy metal things.
Yeah, that's right. And they're saying that she single-handedly pulled this cover off on her own, and I don't buy that. And the reason I say that is because we know definitively how the health of people in Scientology is. First of all, at the time that Stacy passed away, she was a very young adult woman. Second of all, the diet, since she's been in there for her entire life, we know leads to things like emaciation. These are people that are very, very typically disfigured. Their musculoskeletal system is not well developed because they lack nutrition. They're also constantly sleep deprived. They're generally very malnourished. And the weight of that manhole cover in particular was 200 pounds. It would have required her, which I would imagine, and I've asked several people who are actually professional weightlifters this and doctors about the what her frame would have been like. I think probably she would have made between 100 to 110 pounds, and she would have had to deadlift 200 pounds clean, not just deadlift it, but she would have also had to drag it, because the way the manhole cover sits is actually on a lip, and you have to not only lift it up in the air, but you have to drag it up and over that lip, that edge, and you have to get it to the point where it's completely away from the hole so that you can then climb underneath. There's no way that she was able to
But
do
wait,
that on her stature.
what about I've noticed when I've seen people working on the sewers, I've noticed that they have a tool that looks like a crowbar. If she had something like that, would she be able to distribute the weight different by putting it in a hole in the manhole and lifting it up? Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, like I said, it's not just the lifting up, the deadlifting part, right? Like getting the weight up vertical, that's one thing. But you also simultaneously have to also keep it vertical and move it horizontally to drag it out. And so she is not in a proper stature to be able to do that. And let's say even if she was, right, at the crack of dawn that this all happened in, okay, the time it would have taken her to do something like this, and the time for somebody to notice, especially how we know how well how they monitor everybody so religiously, especially the daughter of the guy who's the lawyer of the lead lawyer of the group. There's no way that this just sort of happened out of the thin blue air, that nobody knew, that nobody caught her in time and either tried to prevent it from happening or had direct firsthand knowledge about what was about to go down. And so the story does not add up by the records I obtained that you can see on my website for free on how she died and passed away.
And what was that website again? Maybe Audit could help me out and post the link.
Yeah, it's just my name, auditthegovernment.org. You can see it. If in fact, if you actually Google her name and type in something like Stacy Moxon death, my website will be the first one to come up, and I have a whole article on it that people can read, including the court documents for free.
So you didn't just do this lawsuit to get these papers and you didn't just like hoard the information. You're actually putting it out there so that the public can see it. You're disseminating the information you got and not just keeping it to yourself.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, because it's one thing to just have the info, and so many people for years have been speculating on this, but nobody actually ever took the time to literally follow the lawful process to get what actually happened that day. All we had were some accounts by people who grew up with Stacy, but not of the actual incident. We have accounts from other people that grew up in Hemet, but again, not what happened to Stacy that day. So nobody actually petitioned and filed a records request with the sheriff's department and went through this entire process, but I did. And the information I got was particular to that day. There is so many other avenues that people, and that the floodgates are now entirely open for people if they wanted to look into this deeper, that they could, and I strongly recommend you do. It really is the case that you don't need an entire army. You One person can make the change to look at a situation like this and get the information, put it out there for people to see, and it's really not as scary or as frightening that as people might make it out to be.
So like, was there like something from the, what would it be called? The medical examiner or the coroner or like an autopsy or something? Was that included in what you were able to get or?
Yeah, so they do have a coroner's report on it where they conducted an analysis of the body. The one thing that they did not provide me with, for understandable reasons, were photographs of the body, but the sheriff's department does indeed have that information. They conducted a analysis to see whether there were any drugs in her system. She was not, from what the report says, she wasn't induced by any sort of drugs. But
Even though
the
there are certain drugs that get out of your system right away, right? Like there's something that could possibly not show up after, like an hour, right? I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that there's some substances out there that they won't show up, or it's something that you have to specifically look for in an autopsy and check for, right? Like there could have been something possibly. It doesn't necessarily rule it out, or do you believe that it rules it out?
I agree with you because in this case, what's unique is that she specifically passed away by severe electrical burns. So she came into contact with a very high voltage substation that was active, right? An electrical substation by touching one of the ceramic conductor points that was again magically left exposed. Typically, there is a whole series of mechanisms that even these buried substations have these failure points to cover the conducting points so that a human doesn't accidentally just fry themselves. But anyway, she was completely charred, right? And so there is something to that where there could be, depending on how long she stayed in contact with the conducting point, the type of drug, there is definitely something to that where you could quite literally boil the remnants of a particular drug out of the body.
See, personally, I don't really have an answer to what I believe, if it was suicide or if it was homicide. I'm still keeping my mind open and looking into it more. But if it wasn't suicide, there could be a possibility that someone drugged her or gave her something and had her sort of wander and fall into a manhole.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that
not
hasn't been
just
ruled out.
right. It's not just the time in which she came into contact and got electrocuted to death, right? That's just not how any case works. It's everything that led to that point and then thereafter. Okay, we see this with like the Epstein files, for example. There's a cover up that is generally always much worse than the initial crime itself. And so it's not just, the one time that Epstein did a particular SA to a particular child too, right? It's a whole picture from before, during, and after. That whole picture has to come into context. You can't just take a look at the one incident, in this case with Stacy, where she was electrocuted to death. So I
Okay,
agree with you.
when I was researching this, like when I first started looking into Scientology, Stacey Moxon's like the first thing, and Lisa McPherson, those are like the first big things that sort of hook people in. And I was learning about it, and I heard something about, I forget the source, but I heard something where they were trying to, before the cops showed up, they were trying to cover it up. And I heard something about they were possibly going to put her in a car and drive it into a body of water or off a cliff. Now, did you ever hear anything like that? I'm not saying that's fact. I'm just saying I remember hearing something like that.
I personally didn't, but I can tell you from my experience going through the actual lawsuit that it was incredibly fishy. Um, and here's what I mean by that. So, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, when I made my request, initially said that, in fact, we have no record of any of this. This does not this did not happen. Oh, also, by the way, here's the name of the cops that actually showed up on that scene to this specific incident that you're looking at. And I'm like, oh, come on. These two things cannot be true at the same time. You cannot have officers that responded to the scene and then you're saying that scene did not exist. And so that immediately, right, put me in this mindset that, okay, there's obviously a cover up here, obviously, and a very stupid one at that. But nobody ever said just because you're a criminal you have to be smart and sophisticated, right? It just means that you're a criminal. In this case, The Riverside County Sheriff's Department is a very stupid one at that. There's another separate issue. The current sheriff of Riverside County Sheriff's Department, Chad Bianco, this moron literally stole the election ballots and is been sued for, and has been gotten to the point where has been ordered to return the stolen ballots because he just pulled it out from where the sun don't shine, saying, I think there's fraud. There's fraud. I'm gonna steal the elections because it says so in my um in my in my job description that I can do this, so I'm gonna do it without any evidence. And so that's the way I see it.
So you're saying like basically they're just corrupt there with a lot of stuff, and it's not just the Stacy Moxon thing. Like there's more, and even currently with the election and ballots or whatever, they're still doing shady stuff.
Yeah, it's not just the Scientology issue, right? This is a grander part of a bigger issue, not just in America, but the world at large, which is systemic, deliberate government corruption and their collusion with a bunch of different actors to just totally destroy and undermine the rule of law and act as utter tyrants. That is not unique. This case of Stacy is one of, okay? The fact that they lied about having these records, and then clearly there's the records, because clearly, even though we settled the lawsuit so that I wouldn't have to go and embarrass them any further, and they wouldn't have to get embarrassed any further as well, and they just handed over what I requested. Clearly the records are real. Clearly they lied. They clearly admitted they lied. And I have a part of those records include a sworn declaration by Lieutenant Velasco that admitted that, yeah, actually, we also changed how her name in our internal database is spelled so that when people request any records from her, technically we could say, oh, you know, those records don't exist because they're not spelled in this particular way. And even though we have a duty to help you with records request, we're not going to do that because we're just corrupt sleazeballs and we just don't care about the rule of law and we're criminals. So F you. So yeah,
That sounds really familiar though. Like, you know how Scientology has all these different sub entities, and I was looking into there's building management services, but there's other companies that they have that technically own buildings, and they misspell the words on purpose. They'll have
Mhm.
something that will be like a, a singular word. It's not a plural, but it ends with IE instead of Y. You know, and there's no S at the end of it. So it's like a word that doesn't exist. But they do that in Scientology, I'm thinking, so that when you're trying to look this stuff up, you can't find the records because it's spelled different. And it's crazy that you're saying that Stacy's name was spelled different and accurately so that it would be harder for people to find the information on her.
Yeah, well, where do you think Scientologists learn these tactics from? Because I can tell you they're not that smart. Okay, they learn them from the various agencies like Riverside County Sheriffs because they're not the originators of these tactics. These have been around for generations. This is what we call, in my side of the world, war and strategy. And that's just what they do. They just copy these proven tactics to hide and obfuscate. So yeah, it's not unique in that regard.
Oh, and then you said it was Riverside Sheriff, but Gold Base, it's not in, everyone says it's Hemet, but isn't it in like a different something Springs? I
It's in
forget what
Riverside County. Riverside County
it's
is
so they're
operated
the ones
by the sheriff's department.
okay, so they have the county has the jurisdiction for where Gold Base is,
That's
and
correct.
there's not another police department or anything that could have stepped in. It was just that was their jurisdiction.
That's correct. That's why they're the ones that responded.
Because I know some places they have police and sheriff, and they have them do different things. Sometimes they have like the sheriff focus on like the highways and traffic stuff more, or like the corrections, and then they have the police do other things. I don't know, but I'm not familiar at all with Riverside, but it's the Riverside is the county that Gold Base is in, and it's the sheriffs that
Yeah,
investigate or
so
have to
Hemet,
investigate.
the city where Gold Base is located, Hemet, is unincorporated. The way that the sheriff's office works is they have jurisdiction over unincorporated cities. Hemet is one. Um, Also, in the city of Riverside, they do not have a city police. They defer to the county of Riverside, which is again the sheriff's office for the Riverside County. And that's also operated by Chad Bianco. And that's very common. That's not unique to Riverside County at all. And the reason they do that is because sometimes cities have too small a population where the tax base doesn't make enough to justify having a totally separate and their own law enforcement division, and so they will just contract out with the county, and it makes a heck of a lot more sense. So that's pretty common. Nothing crazy in that end.
But okay, so I feel like I'm jumping around a lot, so I'm sorry if I'm like doing this ADD thing and going back and
No,
forth
I
and
think this is great. These are questions that I guarantee you so many other people have. They don't even understand the sort of layers of like government 101. So I have no problem. Keep them coming.
But okay, where I was talking about I was gonna add on to what I was saying. What was I saying about oh, so with the thing that I heard about the car, okay,
Yeah.
you never heard that before, but I was thinking when I heard that, how are they going to put a body that died in one manner in a car and then drive it off a cliff or in a lake and expect that when it's found that they're going to not think that something's shady? Like
You know,
if
thinking
any police
thinking about it,
department finds a burnt body, they're not going to
y-
think, "Oh, it's, car accident."
yeah, hearing you share the rest of that story, I think you might be referring to the Ashley Shaner case, where
It it could
I did
be.
hear that there was some concerted effort to hide her body. She was involved in a car accident where a Scientologist was drunk out of his goddamn mind and ended up killing her. Her friend survived. The family of Ashley Shaner sued and won. The guy was criminally prosecuted. But that might be what you're referring to, or I could be wrong, but that's the closest that I personally heard and seen myself that makes sense. But as
Well,
far as
I'm saying that it's not a fact. I'm not telling anyone, "Oh, this is what happened," whatever. And I I forget when I started looking into Scientology, but it was at the beginning. It was maybe a decade ago when I had looked into something like that. So I could be mixing them together. And at this point, we've been looking into Scientology a lot. We have so much information. It kind of blends together at some point. It's hard to keep everything, but I'm glad that you have this website where you're putting this information, because that's a way to, even if you can't remember off the top of your head, it's all documented there. And you said that that
yeah,
was auditthegovernment.com
yeah, it's auditthegovernment.org.
or .org, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have tons of fireworks going off right now. I hope that you guys
Oh
can't
yeah,
hear them.
people are going
It's
crazy. Yeah.
blowing me off, but yeah. So how did they discover Stacy?
She was at the bottom of the substation with the manhole cover cracked open, and she was completely unrecognizable, and that's how they found her at the bottom. The way that
But
the
I'm saying, how did they decide that they were going to look for her, or who came upon her body, or what do we know about that?
Yeah, it was the report says that a Scientologist who just so happened to be near the same area doing something that is not even in the report. It just so happens to be that magically a Scientologist happened to manifest themselves in that same general area, that put a call to their supervisor, who then placed a call to the sheriff's office to get them out there on scene. So that's how the chain of the incidents that led to the deputies responding happened.
Okay, so you're saying that Scientology actually called the police in this instance.
Yes,
Like
but not
we always hear
after.
that
But that wasn't
we
the
hear that
first
they
thing they
don't
did.
call police. But I
Yeah, that
guess it's
wasn't.
more they don't call police on other Scientologists.
Well, the
So
thing is, they also did not call the police first. In fact, the police report itself by the detective, I forget their name, but it's on my website. The detective even makes a mention that as they're interviewing different Scientologists, and it was over an hour before they called the police. So they were deliberating for at least an hour amongst themselves what to do. Um, so you are correct. They did not call the police first. They were deliberating internally, and then they called the police.
which that sounds extra shady, like something happened that they're trying to cover up. And I don't know why that wasn't more obvious to the Riverside sheriff, but I guess they were in cahoots or
I
half-assing
would
their
I
job
would
or
I would say it's more half-assing. It was definitely obvious. I mean, the freaking report it says so. So they knew. It's not like they didn't know. I mean, they didn't know at the time, right? The detective didn't know at the time that they arrived, but upon their investigation that they're supposed to do on scene for incidents like this, when you have uh, a death, obviously it's a question you ask. They did, so they found out. But as to why that was not a more probative question and why they literally did not even bother to come back and interview her roommates, her parents. That I think
wait, so
requires a hell of a lot more information.
they did not interview her mom or dad at all?
No, no, not even her roommates. She had roommates, as you know, for how their living arrangements are. Um, yeah,
Okay, well, you're mentioning roommates, but she was married and there was stuff that happened before this where she was separated from her husband.
that's right.
So where they moved him to, was it Clearwater? Or where did they move?
I forget where, but I can tell you that they were not interviewed, and that it was not made a point to follow up on.
Because my understanding is when something happens like that, you go to the next of kin, and next of kin would usually be your spouse, or if you don't have a spouse and you're underage, it would be the parent,
Hmm.
or if you're over age, it would be like your firstborn kid or whatever if you're not married. But they definitely should be interviewing next of kin or something, especially if there's a chance that it's a suicide. They want to know what her mental state was and how she was before then, and they want to talk to the people that are closest. So that's crazy. They did not interview the parents, the roommates, the husband. Who
Yup.
did they interview? Did they interview
They
anyone?
interviewed various Sea Org members and their supervisors, and that's about it. In total, I think it was about four to five people.
And these are people that if they said the wrong thing that Scientology didn't want them to say, there could be consequences for that, right? So
Yup.
you kind of had to say whatever the shore story was or whatever Scientology wanted to make up. They had to fall in line with that and say whatever lie.
Yup. That's
That's
right.
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah, I agree with you. Everything about it is it's from the lack of due diligence of the investigation to the deliberation that's reported upon before the call was made to the deputies to the lackluster follow through by the DA's office, and the fact that nobody had bothered for all these years to even actually use the law, right? Not try to pretend like some sort of magical vigilante justice that they're just gonna, make up evidence or sort of circle jerk about what could or should or did or didn't happen. Nobody had bothered to do any of that up until about a year ago. And that's a damn shame. That's a damn
And
shame.
okay, what is this that I heard that she left, supposedly may have left a note? Did you hear about that? Did you hear any more about that when you looked into things? Was there a note?
The detective did ask about if there was any sort of suicide notes. There was none that were at least when the detective was doing their rounds that same day of the death. There was none that were recovered. The story is that she had been planning this for a while as a suicide, but that is not ruled. Now I know the sheriff's department says that it was an accidental death, but that really doesn't mean anything. Okay, that really doesn't mean anything. And in fact, the way that the case was handled was a year after, exactly on the nose, exactly 1 year. And I found out the reason why is because there's a statute of limitations for a family to prosecute for civil damages when a death of a loved one dies, to follow up and get justice for them. 1 year on the money, case was closed, never bothered to be looked at again. And obviously that makes sense because her dad and mom were what? They were, well, we know Kendrick, and we know who Kendrick was married to. And we know from what we talked about earlier, the only type of person, doesn't matter that she was a woman, that would be married to somebody like Kendrick, despite something like this happen, is somebody that thinks very much like Kendrick does. Um, so
And we don't really hear much about Carla, like the mom. Like we hear all about Kendrick because he's the lawyer and everything. But I heard that she's like or she was at least like a bigger deal in Scientology. She was a higher up. I think she was a OT7 or OT8, and she was like very loyal and dedicated and all that stuff to them. But like, was she? Did we ever hear anything about OSA or a guardian's office with her?
I
Was
didn't
she one of
bother
the
to check. Yeah, I personally didn't bother to check her out much, but everything we know about Kendrick, we can safely infer about her as well, because it takes.
I'm just wondering if Operation Snow White, if she was an unindicted co-conspirator like Kendrick, if she had something to do with that as well.
She would have known. It's reasonable to come to that conclusion. For being married, having kids together, and for that kid to have gone through what they did and keep your mouth shut about the whole thing, I'm going on the limb and saying yes, she would definitely have known.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother crazy thing, that Operation Snow White. That's like the biggest infiltration of the government. And it wasn't just the US government, right? Like I don't know how much you looked into this, but I assume this is like something you've looked into. Like it was 30 countries besides the US where they found like little tiny jobs in different government agencies. Like they were the mail clerk, or they were like, doing running jobs, running errands and stuff like that. But they got themselves into like all these different, every alphabet entity out there, every government, like they were everywhere back then for Operation Snow White.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like now with the Israeli lobby. I mean, there's literally a House bill right now where they're going to integrate the U.S. military with a foreign nation that is actively hostile. Um, I agree. It's utter insanity. And Operation Snow White is again one of. We're seeing a modern day depiction of it, where you have people that are hyped up and addicted to the most extreme aspects of a religious belief system, and you see what it really it leads to: total bloodlust and domination and control as means in of themselves.
Okay, so wait, back to Stacy. When it happened, okay, you're an engineer and you're super smart about this stuff. Would there have been like a huge noise when it happened? Like, I hear like power surges sometimes when there's storms, the car runs into a telephone pole or whatever, or even the
Yeah.
manhole lifting that up. Wouldn't someone have noticed the noise? Wouldn't there have been some type of noise? I don't know, like.
Yeah, actually, that was exactly what was reported on. So, power went out to the base and various, because the way that a substation works is typically it doesn't handle just the entire load of a facility. And I forget which parts of the facility that the one that she died in handled, but the people that were interviewed noticed it because their systems were shut down, their utilities were shut down, and so that's how it did. It was noticed by other people, not just this magical person that manifested just outside the manhole cover.
But then again, those people that noticed did nothing.
Correct.
That's
As far as
horrible.
we know from what the record reflects. But
So what
we know how
is
this group works. I guarantee there was discussions internally about how to address this, how to keep shut about it, how to not say anything, and how to destroy other evidence regarding her death. I mean, we saw that with oh God, why is her name?
McPherson, Lisa McPherson.
Yes, thank you. We saw that with the Lisa McPherson case.
And okay, so do you believe that Kendrick actually like covered things up and actually took part in covering it up?
Absolutely. I am 100% confident on that, to the extent, right, if he did every possible aspect of the cover up. I don't believe so. He's frankly too stupid for that. He's not a smart person at all. He does not have a strategy. He's not somebody that devises strategy. He is nothing more than just a little lapdog that will execute whatever his master tells him to. But did he get involved with cover up? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind to that end.
So he's such a bad father that it's not just that he let it happen and, stayed with Scientology, but he also was actively involved in the covering up of it.
Yes, and the caveat I want to make to that is specifically because if he did not, then he would lose his status and power. And that is something that his psychology could not allow him to do. His psychology could not allow him to relinquish the one and only thing that he cherishes the most, more than anything else. And that is, again, his power and status.
Right, so you keep saying stuff like how dumb he is or how he's not smart or whatever. But
Yep.
like, how could someone that isn't smart pass the bar and be a lawyer and be the lawyer that they use a lot? Not their main lawyer when they're doing big things like the Danny Masterson thing, because I guess they need someone more intelligent. But, like all these BS lawsuits that he does just to, waste people's time and money and tie him up in court. He's the one that they use. But if he's so dumb, why don't they have someone smarter?
Well, you kind of answered it there, because he is that dumb and stupid. He's cannon fodder. You know, he's a throwaway guy. They don't care about him. He knows where enough bodies are buried, literally and figuratively, that they can't just get rid of him at this point, right? Because he has that leverage. And so, what do you do with somebody like that? Well, he's just kind of stuck in this crappy position where he goes to harass victims who naturally and understandably, right, they have gone through such mental turmoil and various forms of abuse that they generally become very reactive emotionally, and you can just mess with them in that regard. But when you meet somebody that is not part of the organization and did not have any of the brainwashing that they peddle to people, like somebody like a William Good, then you can see how weak this guy actually is. And even I saw it when I was going through my misdemeanor case. The guy's a moron, okay? He will happily perjure himself because they're not going to get rid of him. And if they do, then it's going to backfire on them. So you just keep him around. You let him do the dumbest of the dumb work. He'll happily do it because he gets off on being told what to do. He needs that psychologically. And to pass the bar is not difficult. I mean, goddamn, I have seen a lot of stupid lawyers, even relatively in my age, become lawyers and pass the bar. And so that is not an issue. Passing the bar, going to law school is not an issue. Okay. You can be utterly stupid and pass the bar and go and graduate from law school. It just means that you passed the bar and you graduated from law school. That's it.
Okay, and speaking of the bar, like you've called into the bar meeting a lot. Audit, Laura, me, Mona's called. We've called into the bar and we make these complaints. Is there anything that can actually be done when you complain about someone to the bar? Like, how does that work?
Absolutely. I'll tell you a very good example of that. So when I went to the October, was it like 29th or the 31st? One of those late October last year. I went to um, Tony Diamato's hearing for a bail violation, and his lawyer, I forget his name. He's a bald dude. Um, yeah, I forget his name. Anyway, okay, I arrived at the courtroom very early that day. It was at 8:30, but I arrived much earlier. And I know a bunch of the deputies. I talked to this guy in particular. I let him know that listen. I'm a victim. I'm here to spectate, and I just want you to know that this guy is likely Spindle. Yeah, I think that's what the lawyer's name is. But anyway, I let the deputy know. Listen, this guy is a jerk. He's probably going to tell you that I'm here to cause harm and cause a ruckus, which obviously was a lie. But I just want you to let you know that he's going to do that to a T. He's going to try to get me kicked out of the courtroom, but it's your lawful duty to not do that and to not give in to any of his nonsense and just dismiss him and ignore him and move on from it. And lo and behold, it's exactly what he did. I wrote a complaint to the bar, and the bar slapped him with that complaint and said this marks his first and only notice that they're ever going to give him just a slap on the wrist ever, and that they acknowledged and upheld that what I stated was true, that he tried to get me kicked out of the courtroom, and that the next step would be sanctions if he ever and suspension of his license if you ever continue these behaviors again. And so absolutely it does work. That guy, when he left the courtroom after the hearing is over out in public, I actually streamed it on my video. I zoomed in on his face, and he had this mean mug as if he's trying to intimidate me, but this guy's a joker, a freaking clown. And so I got him in the lawful way, right? I'm not going to do anything unlawful or stupid to get myself to a point where, I can't leverage that over somebody. So it does work. I can tell you it does work. And the other part to that is you can't sit around and complain about something and not do anything with it, right? I don't like that. It's one thing if you're a victim, but it's another thing if you're not going to do anything with your information and with the victimization you've gone through, especially if you're somebody that has a strong support network around you. Because frankly, in my opinion, I'm more hardlined on this. You don't have the right to complain if you're not going to do anything with the information. Like, you actually show up to the meetings. That matters. That is seriously important. It does have long-term success with it. Okay. People think this is just like you snap your fingers and it happens. That's not how it works. You actually have to show up and actually use the law. And just like I did with the bar, and just like Audit did, that's how it works. The sad fact is people just don't do it. They just think that somehow magically, right, from the clouds, it's just going to rain down and everything's going to be okay. It doesn't work like that. You actually have to go and follow the process. Otherwise, in my opinion, you don't have the right to complain if you're not going to actually use the tools before you. Oh, that long-winded answer, but that's my take on it.
So like, it's kind of when people are like complaining about an election or something, and then they didn't even vote. And it's like, if you're not
Absolutely.
voting, why are you complaining about it? You could go and do something about it, even though votes don't technically count as you would think, because the electoral college, but still, if you aren't doing something, why are you trying to tear something down and say, all this bad stuff? And why not do it yourself and make a change? Why just, run your mouth and just sit there? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. But
yeah, people just want to talk trash for the sake of talking trash and feel like that does something. It does nothing. Like, it does nothing, man. Like, oh my God. But yeah, organize, file records requests, right? Make a comment. Those are the things that matter, and those drive the needle. Talking trash just for the sake of talking trash is nothing.
Okay, and then you were bringing up court. So you had one court case, but it wasn't technically Moxon against you. It was the city, or how?
So I'll explain it. When I was charged, it was one count of misdemeanor vandalism, and that was because Alexander Irvin flat out lied on a police report. He's a security guard for Scientology, not a private one, but he's a Sea Org member, part of PAC Security.
Wait,
and
is he the one that had the cast on his arm? Or is that
I don't know if he did. He's the ginger hair looking one, I think. That's what I remember. He's a younger looking guy. I want to say he's probably my age. But yeah, he's I actually videoed him on he usually has the earpiece too, where they're communicating back and forth. I noticed that not all of them have that. But he's the younger guy, and I have him on video on my other YouTube channel, Cult Audit. But anyway, he filed a police report. And as a result of that, less than 2 weeks, I kid you not, literally less than 2 weeks, okay, it went from a bogus police report to filing charges with zero evidence, and the detective himself even admitted as such. And the whole documents and records, for those that are wondering, also on my website, auditthegovernment.org, you can read all about it there. It's under the city attorney's misconduct profile. Heidi Feldstein Soto, who lost her election, uh,
Thank
get get screwed, Heidi. And so yeah, that's what happened with me. But the
So, okay.
victim was never settled on who that was, and in fact, that was actually one of the records requests that Audit LA did. Clearly show that the deputy assigned to prosecute Ethan Green, even he was going back and forth like, oh, I think this we have a crappy case here.
So from what I saw, I remember they put up the netting and they had the rose bushes and all that stuff because they did not want people on the public easement, and they wanted to block that, and they wanted to make it so you couldn't stand on the grass. So they put the netting with the stakes.
And
And
the LAPD said that was illegal, and so did the Board of Public Works. They issued emails as well as an order regarding that. But go on.
from what I saw, it was technically abandoned property because it was on the easement. So it was trash that they just threw at the curb, basically. And
Yes.
what you did is you actually looked out for people and you took it up so someone couldn't trip over it and get hurt and then have to sue the city or whatever. Like, whatever your motive was, like someone could have got hurt and cost the city a lot of money because of Scientology doing that. Right? Like,
Yeah.
that was a safety hazard. And
Yeah,
it
I actually
blended
tripped and
in too.
fell myself
Yeah,
on the netting.
and didn't you roll it up really nice and everything? And it's not like
Yeah,
you destroyed it. You just put it over by the trash can or whatever, if I remember correctly.
that's
But
correct. I put it on one giant pile near where the garbage trucks were going to come that day, and that's all I did with it. I just moved it to that one spot.
and this was after the fact that the city had already said that they can't have that. They can't have the thorny bushes or thorny vegetation. And they were already told they couldn't have it. So
Correct.
definitely in my mind, it's abandoned trash. And you were
Correct.
just being a good person looking out, like, and you were nice about it. You rolled it up. You didn't, other people, destroy stuff and whatnot. And you just rolled it up really nice. And you, I don't know. But what did Alex say? Like, what were the words that they tried to describe? Did they say like you were, I don't know, how did they sensationalize it and lie?
Well, the detective also outright put in the report that I had physically assaulted a Scientologist, which literally never happened. Alex himself said that he was personally physically present on scene. He literally was not there. And then Jennifer had the audacity to say that I had accosted her. She was not even on scene. And she said
And
that about that day in particular, June the 16th, 2024. I was like,
did
come
she
on.
try to did she try to say that she was the owner of the netting? Because I know that she tries to take ownership of, a lot
No,
of
she said
abandoned
she was
crap.
personally victimized. She personally,
Okay.
yeah,
So
beyond
and
that.
but they didn't do like a civil suit against you. This was the prosecutor, the city attorney came after you. So it was the city versus you.
Yeah, so the way it works in LA is in the city limits of the city of LA, because people don't understand that LA is actually multiple um, sort of neighborhoods that you could say that constitute the city. Uh, that is the discretion and the jurisdiction of the city attorney's office to prosecute, and they can only prosecute misdemeanors. The DA operates for all of LA County, and some cities, again, are too small to have their own dedicated city attorney. So the DA prosecutes the misdemeanors for them as well as the felonies for them. But in LA city limits, the DA will only take on felony cases.
So
Uh,
that's why you had the city attorney coming at you for that, and then
yes.
another person for something different, but kind of in the same lane. They had the district attorney going after him because they wobbled it and it was a felony. So because you had the misdemeanor, it went through Heidi and instead of the Hockman guy, the district attorney.
Yeah, the way people can remember it is within city limits of LA, misdemeanors equals city attorney, felonies equals DA. And then the rest of LA County, misdemeanors and felonies equal DA.
Okay, and then when like this court case is already over, so you can talk about it freely and all that stuff. But like
Yeah.
when you were doing it, you do they call it pro per there or is it pro se? You represented yourself, right?
Not in the misdemeanor case. I had a lawyer
Okay.
and I was not going to represent myself. And frankly, for whatever people want to say, the way it works is if there was ever even the slightest way that your case could have been mishandled, you have an excuse and an out to get accountability and justice. Whereas if you were self represented and you took the case entirely on your own accord and you botched the case, that's on you. You don't get to say something like, well, I didn't do a good enough job, so therefore I have some sort of grounds for an appeal. Uh, but also, I did it personally because I wanted to see why is it that Danny got shafted by the same law firm? What did they try to do to him? And was it true? I wanted to see for myself. And so that's why I was fine taking on that same law firm because I wanted to get inside for myself and see what are these guys doing? People are making a lot of claims. Oh my God, they're Scientology backed. And oh my God, they're. No, this law firm is what they call a plea mill. Okay. A plea mill is just that for people that haven't heard of it. It's people that are generally very poor, do not have financial means, and they will just pump out plea deals left, right, and center, even if they're terrible plea deals, just so you can get them the hell out of the courtroom. And most of the times, people don't have the foundation to understand how the law actually works, get screwed over because a lot of these crappy plea deals, and they know it's crappy, but it doesn't matter. You're paying not all that much comparatively, especially you got to remember it's LA, so the prices are higher. Um, and I
But
want to
okay,
see.
don't you technically save money though if you get a lawyer because when you are your like own lawyer, you have to pay to file motions. Like, isn't there a way that it's cheaper because you're not paying out of pocket to file the motions and the lawyers
No, not all the
filing?
time. Lawyers will charge you for filing fees. The retainer is for them to represent you, but that doesn't mean that things like administrative costs, right? Like filing fees. It doesn't mean that they'll pay it. They'll just charge you the client.
But that's just crazy. Like the whole legal system like is crazy to me because people that have money have such an advantage and can
Yep,
get, a team of lawyers and all that and it doesn't matter like hundreds of dollars to file this or to get transcripts or all that stuff is super expensive. If you are broke and poor and trying to do it, like how how do you get the same justice? You don't. It's not fair.
that's the
And
answer.
yeah. But
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm
so
going to
what
law school personally. I don't like it. I had a feeling that that's what was going on with my lawyer, and I was right. Unfortunately, I don't like it when I'm right for a great many things, but that's how it works. Money talks, and it shouldn't be that way.
But regardless of that, though, the lawyer, I guess the case, it it settled, or how did it end? Like I know that it wasn't like bad.
I made a plea deal, and I created my own plea deal. I did not want to step into a jury trial because why the hell would I subject myself to, people would say, oh man, you gotta fight it, man. Like you really gotta go and fight it, man. And those are the same people that have no clue and live in their own delusions about what it actually is to go through and be a criminal defendant. Okay. Those people can unkindly go F themselves in their delusional circle jerk they have about how the justice system works. I knew I was innocent, and I knew that the plea deal I created was going to get me out totally free. And what I paid wasn't even something I paid. It was because people from the public generously supported, and so I had no legal bills, nothing at all. And I got to learn how the entire LA justice system works and who's who as a result of it. And so I walked away with no fees, no time wasted really, and it was great. But the way it worked is for me, I said a civil infraction, so meaning no criminal history, and then to get it expunged, and no fines, no probation, nothing of the sort. Completely remove any reference to the vandalism. That's what happened. I got a parking ticket with no fines or penalties, just as a matter to say that this case happened and that it was resolved in the way I wanted it to, so I could avoid all that trash, because that's how court works. If you're charged, that's the only two options you have. You go to trial or you take a deal. Why would I waste more time and more money to go through and put myself through all that? It's not fun. Like, people don't understand how the justice system actually works. It's not fun going on the stand, and especially in how deeply, deeply messed up the LA criminal justice system is, but also generally the U.S. justice system is. Well, why the hell would I subject myself to that? Why don't you subject yourself to that, and then you tell me how you like it? This is stupid. So that's how my case ended, though.
All right. Hold on. There's so many fireworks right now. It's like throwing me off again. But so what could you have faced if you didn't plea? What was the maximum damage that they could have done? Like fines, jail time?
Yeah, I think it was a $2,000 fine and a year in jail, but for first time offenders, which I have never had a record, it would have been cut in half to 6 months in jail. But even if realistically I did get it convicted, I would probably serve a day, realistically, since I have such a clean record. Um, and yeah, I just didn't
And
want to take that chance.
now it's not on your record. Like you were able to do it so that it doesn't pop up as
Yeah,
whatever
I
they
have
were
nothing.
attempting.
I have nothing on my record. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like some people are acting like it's I don't know. I'm not even gonna talk about that. But so you did that, you looked into the Stacy Moxon thing. I know that
Yep.
you focused on the city attorney a lot too with your research, and you looked into Heidi. You know, what did you learn about Heidi that we don't really know about?
So people have said that, oh, you got to be careful about this, Henry, but I've said it publicly many times because what I did was totally and perfectly illegal. I had a total physical change. Like, I was literally in disguise, okay? And I went undercover at a public event where Heidi was speaking about her upcoming campaign back in 2025, and I interviewed her and I recorded her and I asked her about Scientology. She didn't know that she was speaking to me, the same guy that was also being charged by her. And I just asked her about what she thought of the whole thing, and she admitted she knew the case was trash. She was doing it at the political whim of Scientology, and generally, she doesn't really care much about them so long as they give her votes and donations. So that's how and who Heidi is. She's an utter degenerate. She's a she's the lowest bottom of the barrel type of politician, which LA is known for. Okay, she too is not smart. She too does not have strategy. And so, long story short, with Heidi, um, my case, okay, the way it works is when you take stuff like this up, it generates activity, right? Emails get exchanged between prosecutors and the cops and other government agencies. And that's more of a paper trail to eventually burn people properly and with the law, in the confines of the law, in the long run. And so I knew inevitably this is how it would pan out. It did. And so now we're finding who else, right? These network and tentacle of corrupt prosecutors that are willing to do this dirty deeds. Who are they? Right? That's the real end goal of stupid stuff like Scientology, because they can only get away with it because the government allows them to get away with it based on whatever favors and incentives that they are given. And so we found out people like Deputy Ethan Green is another scumbag who also did a Jeffrey Epstein illegal plea deal in the D'Amato case. And that he too is also a prosecutor that's well known in the city of LA in churning out these bogus plea deals for defendants that are generally just too poor to fight it. And this law firm that I was with is one of those plea mills that is engaged in this nonsense. And so that's how you go and properly out and expose these people. Um, But that's ultimately who Heidi is. She's just another low level, a failure of a lawyer, I might add, an utter failure. She's a banking lawyer for her entire career. Okay. And she thinks that she can now turn to be a career prosecutor, never once having any sort of history in criminal prosecutions. Never once. And in fact, the one whistleblower, Michelle McGinnis, who came out and exposed the real degenerate that Heidi is how we know that Heidi is the reason why there was that giant data leak at the city attorney's office recently that the LA Times covered. Heidi literally said internally that, oh man, all it takes is just one person to come out and blow the house down, just like they did in the Enron fraud case. That's all it takes, man. Just one person to come out. And sure enough, Michelle McGinnis was that one whistleblower internally. She was the director of the criminal prosecution branch, and she exposed Heidi's her entire time at the city attorney office. She was just politically prosecuting people that dared go after anybody that was her donors or her supporters. Ben Camacho, the guy that literally made the whole Watch the Watchers website that shows the photographs of the LAPD, she prosecuted that guy because he dared file a CPRA to get those records and harassed him, and then prosecuted his lawyer for representing him, for doing nothing but representing him. Like, that's who Heidi is. She's a degenerate. But that's
but
that's
but the elections happened and she did not get the top two, so she's not gonna be the city attorney after
yep.
the general election.
She lost.
But I kind of worry, does someone in that position maybe just not give a F anymore and just do even more crazy stuff on their way out? Do you see that
Could
type
be,
of
but I think with her, she's gotten so much burn and blowback. It would be very stupid of her. She's already on the watch list of the DOJ for helping cause and aid and abet so much of the homelessness fraud, because all those deals, by the way, go through her. Anytime the city ratifies a deal and blesses a deal, whether it's land use or anything else, goes directly through her. She's the head honcho, so she knows all and sees all. And so she's known about the various homeless use, and the DOJ is up crawling up their ass. The local prosecutors are crawling up there as well. It would be very stupid of her to do something even dumber while she's on her last days, especially because that's another thing that you could get her for. She's already on the hook for so much.
right? Because it's like you said, it's not just the Scientology stuff and going against protesters and approving, all the charges, whatever. It has way more to do with bigger, more. I don't know. It's not bigger, but because to me, it's not bigger. To me, the Scientology issue is bigger, but there's a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of huge things that she's been accused of or proven that she's done or whatnot. So it's not just because we're biased against her with, going after Scientology protesters. Like just in general, she's just a crappy, like a shady, sketchy person.
Yeah, I mean, she's an outright criminal. I don't care if she hasn't been charged yet. Her history and the rest of her time being as a licensed lawyer, I imagine, is going to go like what happened to Roy Cohn. Okay, Roy Cohn was on his deathbed, right? He had his diagnosis of cancer and all the shady criminal stuff he did with Trump at the time. The bar ultimately waited until that time, and then they slapped him across the face, took his license, okay, sanctioned him, and gave him the middle finger. I imagine very similar outcome is going to happen to Heidi.
Yeah. So do you know anything about the two other people that are running to take her job?
Yeah, John McKinney is a piece of shit. He's an utter degenerate. I was actually posting about him. So, long story short, there's two candidates: John McKinney and Marissa Roy. Marissa Roy should win. She's got a clean record, and she also works at the city attorney's office as a deputy for civil litigation. She's a clean person. I checked her out. She has no sketchy past. John McKinney, on the other hand, the other scumbag, is a total. He is the male equivalent of Heidi. Okay, this guy did a political favor to get a quid pro quo outcome where he endorsed Nathan Hawkman uh, for his candidacy as DA back when Nathan Hawkman was running. When Nathan Hawkman won, then McKinney was immediately promoted to being a regular deputy to being the director of the Special Prosecutions Branch. If you don't know what that is the division of the DA's office that handles all of the high profile cases that deal with celebrities and all the shit that you see on TV. He's that guy now. Okay. He's that guy. And that's not the only thing that he's done while under the color of law, to use his position as a deputy in the DA's office to get clout politically and get leverage. He was also the same guy that was trying to get a steering committee and petition for George Gascon, the previous DA before Hockman, to get him kicked out. And he had stated, but never actually proven, and still to this day, it's not proven, that, oh man, just because I went against George Gascon, my boss, publicly, just because I went out against him publicly, he's demoted me, man. Like, you should just believe me because I said so, bro. Trust me. Was never proven, never offered any sort of proof. Even when he was pressed, he runs away like a punk. And to this day, he's also using the DA's office via a podcast that they're launching, that they have launched to get clout for himself, for his campaign. He's using his office while being a deputy to run for his election for the city attorney. I mean, this guy is crooked as all hell.
Is that even legal?
It's not legal. It's against their own policy at the DA's office, as well as the Fair Practice Election Commission, the FPCC, whatever the hell it's called. I filed an ethics commission on this guy, complaint via the ethics commission against this guy's ass. He shouldn't even be allowed to run. Okay, he's violated just about every single conflict of interest and political quid pro quo law and ordinance that you could as somebody trying to run for a city attorney election. This guy's a total degenerate, a total utter degenerate. And Marissa Roy deserves to win. She's a sane, rational, and reasonable person. Okay, and she's smart. This guy is not smart. McKinney is a very stupid guy.
Audit was saying that she met her dad, Marissa's dad, at the polls. And
yeah,
I remember
he's a chill dude.
Good guy, and that he was, saying just, like, wait till she's in or whatever, and tell her, that you talk to her dad or whatever. But like, that's who I want. That
John McKinney deserves to lose, and Marissa Roy needs to be the next city attorney so we could finally have reestablishing the rule of law. McKinney is just an utter poverty pimp. He does nothing but peddle lies and propaganda, trying to make it seem like he cares about people. He is corrupt. He is a tyrant, and he's a miserable POS. He deserves to lose, and he's just violated elections, campaign laws left and right.
Do you believe that he would be worse than Heidi?
I believe so. He's younger, and he's hell bent on just asserting his way. Okay, an utter degenerate, worse than Heidi.
Well, okay, since we're talking about like elections and stuff, do you have any opinion that you want to talk about for the mayor? I mean, it should be obvious, fighting against Scientology, it should be an obvious one. But what are your thoughts on the mayor race?
Well, the way I see it is, first of all the candidates are trash. That's just a cold hard fact. It doesn't matter if you support one cause or another, or if you're fighting somebody like Scientology or not. The way I see it and the way the real world operates is this. You do not want a new person. Karen Bass should win it. Why? Because then you could say she had no excuse. She had no plausible deniability, especially now as Bass and all of her friends are actively being investigated by the U.S. Attorney's Office, aka the DOJ, and the DA for various rampant fraud schemes that they've been supported, aiding and abetting for years. And if Bass wins, then she would obviously continue to do the same corrupt stuff because she's just as much of an idiot as somebody like Moxon is, and she would absolutely continue to do that. And so you want her back in that position so she has no plausible deniability, so you could permanently burn her and throw her ass in prison where she belongs. So I want Bass to win for that reason. Nithya Raman is also a corrupt POS.
That's a very interesting take, because for me, the obvious answer is because my main thing is fighting against Scientology and their abuses and atrocities. And we know that Karen is sympathetic to them, empathetic. I don't know what the word would be, but she's been on their stage, said a lot of, nice stuff about them publicly. There's been stuff when she was running against, I think it was Caruso back in the day.
Yep.
It came out that she was at their, what was it? The event, was it the IAS? I don't remember what event, but you know what I'm talking about. People have seen the video. You can look it
Yeah.
up on YouTube, all that. So for me, I want her out because I feel she's so safe pointed by Scientology. And at the same time, like you have been, fighting the fight against Scientology, but you have other things going on too that factor into it, right? You look at a bigger picture than just pinpointing it about Scientology. So you're saying like all the stuff that she's doing, you just want her to keep digging her own hole or whatever because of that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, listen, Nithya Raman is a POS. Nithya Raman is also very favorable to Scientology indirectly by a way a lot of people don't understand. And the reason she is because she's favorable to landowners. Scientology is one of the top 5 landowners in LA city limits. Okay, they own a ton of land, and Nithya Raman has chaired the homeless oversight committee for city council. Nithya Raman is, I would argue, even worse than Bass because she hides under a mask. Bass just outright tells you. It's so easy and obvious to catch Bass in a lie. It's not the same for Raman. She's much more manipulative and sly with it, although she too doesn't really have a strategy, but nevertheless. And so you want criminals to be stupid and do stuff out in public, okay? Because that's how you catch them and you put them away for the long term. It's much harder when they don't show you their hand and they don't do the stuff they do out in grandiose fashion like Bass does. And so that's how the real world actually operates, especially when you have a situation when you have terrible candidates on both sides, okay? Bass is terrible. Ramen is terrible. It doesn't matter what fight you're fighting, what cause you're for. They're both terrible. But if you really want a return back to the rule of law, which I strongly believe in, you would vote for Bass so you can continue burning her and holding her and her cronies accountable because that's how that works. These people are very dumb. You want them to continue their racketeering methods and continue to not have any excuses like plausible deniability. That's how you catch them, and that's how you win in the long run.
okay, but then who holds the mayor accountable in a situation like that? Like, if she's digging her hole, who's the one that has to finally see it and be like, enough is enough? Like, can you
Well, we
impeach
are.
him?
We are.
But can you do like some legal thing and like impeach, or I don't know what other word it would be, but is there some
Impeachment is not the way though, because you have to understand, well, let's work through that, right? What does impeachment mean? You remove a person and then you go for somebody else. LA has 0 viable candidates. The only honest LA politician is city controller Kenneth Mejia. Literally the only honest guy, okay? There is no honest people running for the office of the mayor. And so how do you change that? You have to do what we're doing. You have to empower people to realize they have to put up their own candidates, grassroots candidates. That's how you win. The only way you do that is you arm them with information and that you apply pressure to them to actually use the tools of the law gives you and change for the better. People in the most disenfranchised communities right now are not being spoken to. Okay, people that are in the wealthy Epstein class are being spoken to and they are politically active. If people really want to change, and this is more and bigger than just LA, this is a bigger picture. You have to have a populace, right? By general public coming together and being very clear that they are standing against corruption and tyranny. It's not about Scientology because Scientology is one of, okay? The Catholic churches do the same shit, but a hell of a lot more secretive, okay? The Mormon churches do the same shit, okay? The Judaism does the same shit. They are no different from each other, other than just the stupid stuff that their books say. That's how you actually have a true return to the rule of law and accountability. You have to have mass populists coming together on a singular topic, which is we do not stand for corruption, we do not stand for tyranny, and we are coming together regardless of what our demographics is on that single point. That's how you get mass support for whatever your single issue, whether it be Scientology or otherwise, is. That's how you actually get change. And until that happens, you're going to continue getting more of a Bass copy. There's no viable candidates right now, but this is how you do it. You build a counter narrative. Nobody else that is independent is doing this building of the counter narrative. It's very powerful what you and I are doing. Even you can say, oh, well, we don't have the 6-figure subscriber count. Doesn't mean anything. What Audit LA and I have shown, and you as well have shown, is that you don't need a 6-figure subscriber channel. You just need one person willing to go and actually take action, make public comment, file CPRAs. Any of those matters. Actual action. That's how you change the outcome and have better candidates, empower people, building that counter narrative.
And like you were saying earlier, most times things take time and things are slow before there's change, right? So just
Absolutely.
because something's happening right away doesn't mean that there's not change.
Gigi,
Or
you tell me how long you've been making public comment at Board of Public Works. You tell me how long.
almost 2 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
But a lot of good has come out of that, hasn't it? Because your public comment has saved my ass. You know that, right? You saved my life. The pressure that you applied from those comments resulted in that order being issued. And you invariably led to the positive outcome I had in my case. So you're talking to somebody who you literally saved my case and my life because of that. That's real.
Well, like, I get that and you get that, but like the census is, or the consensus is, that meetings don't do anything and going to speak for a minute doesn't do anything and all that stuff. But like you mentioned, it helped you out. And remember how there was that summer of endless permits? They closed
Yep.
down that street all the time. It doesn't happen like that anymore.
That's correct.
They're changing things up, but it's slow. And sometimes it doesn't seem like much, but there is a huge difference. It's just okay. You know who what do we call him? I guess Batman or Mr. Herman is, right? Who
Yeah,
speaks
yeah.
at so him and Goat Puppet, how long have they been going and saying whatever their concerns are?
Decades.
And is anything getting done about what they're saying? Maybe, but it's not big enough for them to notice, or there is nothing being done. But
absolutely. I can tell you from the many conversations I've had with them that a lot of good has come as a result of their, again, just regular independent people building the counter narrative. First of all, they have set the stage for having a gadfly, right? Having a vocal critic and actively telling the government F you. Okay. And when you see a regular person like our beloved Spindler, aka Goat Puppet, or Herman, aka Batman, do that, it gives a lot of leeway and invites other people to also say, wow, if they worked up the courage to do that, then I think I can too. At the same time, what else have they actually accomplished in the meantime? Well, Herman was partly involved with a lawsuit filed a while back where we have a ruling where if somebody cuts you off at city council or elsewhere during your public comment, that's a ruled and settled First Amendment violation. Okay. It's not just the Brown Act, but that's a safe ruling, a court ruling we have as a result of the David Salzberg case. I have that on my website. That's what they've done.
And that's California specific, or is it LA specific?
Federal. That's federal. That's federal.
Federal. Okay.
That's federal. Yep. The other thing is that Spindler, Goat Puppet, is also tied to much bigger issues in my side of the sphere, which is anything that talks about national security. And he has been a big driving force to getting media coverage as well as actual homeless people to come forward with the illegal and fraudulent activities of the city with regard to homeless fraud. And as a result of both of their petitioning and hard work for decades, we have quite literally America's biggest homeless and general fraud case ever. The LA Alliance case that was ruled as of last year. Okay, those two guys have met with a lot of those homeless people and various organizations, and we've got a killer ruling on that where we have independent monitoring. People have already started going to prison. There's already going to be more people going to prison as a result of it, and active DOJ investigations and FBI raids as a result. So, does it take time? Yeah. But did they do it properly? You bet your ass they fucking did. I don't care what anybody says. They really did. You might not be aware or as tuned in as I am, and I'm not talking about you, Gigi, personally, but you, the general people. But let me tell you, those people have been doing it for decades and it has churned. That's why they are so picked on. Okay, people don't know that context, but those two people are picked on heavily because of how much good and true institutional long-term change they've been able to do as a result of, in their particular way, they show their activism. They show up and make petitions to public comment and also write complaints thereafter. They use the law. They're not afraid of it either. But again, they actually do stuff. They don't just complain and sort of circle jerk and talk about doing. They actually do. You don't have to support their individual cause, but you can learn from their tactics and their methods. And it's very effective. It is very, very effective.
I think a lot of people just judge the two of them right away because of the words that come out of their mouth sometimes. And, like me personally, I cannot stand the slurs that they use. And I don't co-sign what they're saying when they go on their rants using that language. But like you said, they have done a lot. They're very smart and they've been persistent. They've been doing this for a long, long time and they are making changes.
And that's deliberate. They are not like that at all in actual real life. That is 100% an entire facade and a ruse. They're very smart people. Okay, they do it deliberately to get a reaction, and then they file complaints with very legitimate standing and cause. Just because they don't get acted on right now when those complaints are filed doesn't mean those complaints aren't legitimate. They're building a record. With any good investigation, you have to build that record, okay, slowly and surely, and that's what they're doing. And they're not like that at all when you talk to them offline. They are total 180, very, very smart people.
And like you said, they get picked on. And like one example that I can think of is at one of the public works meetings, I forget what the agenda item was, but it was multiple agenda. And Herman was speaking about it and he was saying enough for it to be on topic. He was talking about, he was inserting the words of, what it said in the agenda item. So he should have been on topic. And he did not go off topic, but they kept stopping him and interrupting him. And President Kang was saying that's off topic and all that stuff. But then you have other people that are even more off topic. And I'm glad that they don't get called off topic because they're saying stuff I want them to say, so I'm glad they're not getting called off topic, but they're doing the same thing and they're only going after Herman and Goat Puppet for that off topic thing, the same day that other people are going off topic and they don't say anything to them. It's like something happened. Something happened where they questioned Herman's disability the other day or something.
Yeah, so I
And
can actually tell you in the David Salzberg federal case I mentioned about getting cut off at public comment, they were actually brought up as the examples of how the city has selective enforcement. And that's part of the story that they were able to create because of examples like Herman and Wayne, right? Batman and Goat Puppet, because of them. And so they do serve a very good purpose. And that's why they're very much hated. And they made it into that case. They weren't the people that filed it, but they helped craft that story because it's true.
so, okay, like the Brown Act thing, you filed, what are they called? not complaints. What's that called?
That's basically what they are. It's just complaints that they're violating the Brown Act and your First Amendment.
So
They're
what
technically,
happens when you do that? Like, what's sort of like the process, and like what actually happens?
yeah.
Is anything achieved from it?
So let me actually first explain what the Brown Act is, right? You're supposed to be allowed public comment and not be interrupted. Okay. You have your time, you're entitled to it. There's actual real consequences. For every time they interrupt you, when you file that complaint, the DA is supposed to charge that individual government official and they lose what's called their qualified immunity and charge them with criminally. It's a criminal misdemeanor offense to cut somebody off at their public comment, and it's $1,000 fine for each and every time, and each and every uh, time that they do it is a separate instance, a separate a separate case altogether. So that's what's actually supposed to happen. The law makes it very, very clear. The DA has full power to do just that. That is 100% within the DA's tool set to prosecute. So that's why it's so powerful. California is the only state in all of the USS has that codifies that as a law. But as far as does it happen now? Well, when you file those comments, the clerk stores and saves them. So the DA has that record. But again, just because the DA does not do anything now does not mean that all is lost. You, as general, you can actually file a lawsuit against the DA's office for not taking these cases that are so clear and egregious and have it be heard. So the point of filing these complaints is like we've been talking about this entire time. You have to build the record and show it that this is a pattern and practice. There's a long-standing history. And so that's what Herman and Wayne do a really freaking good job at. I've done that. I've seen Audit LA and tons of other people also do that. It is so important to file those, and all you need to do is you can just make verbal mention of it when you comment, or you can just email the city clerk or the city attorney's office, or frankly any of the city staff of the mayor's office, um, or the board itself that you're complaining about your comment being cut off, or you can complain about somebody else and that their comment was being cut off and that you're, unfavorably treating people based on political will. And so that's how that works.
So wait, you're telling me that like the time that I signed up on Zoom and they put my name on Zoom to speak, and then they skip me in public comment, that could I file something for that? I mean, probably not
Yeah,
now because it was a while
you can
ago, but
anytime.
that
It doesn't
situation.
have to be the day it happens either. Any point in time, you can file a complaint, and that would constitute a Brown Act violation. You can just tell them what happened. You don't have to spell out all the specifics of the verbiage and language I'm saying. It's just a complaint, is what it is. Okay, that's their duty to put in and contextualize all the other legalese. But all you, as the person who got violated, have to do is just file that complaint, either verbally or by writing. Okay, on the agendas they'll have the Board of Public Works emails. You can email them that way, or the clerk. That constitutes as the filing. That's a good enough. That's all it takes.
And that's the phrase I was looking for, the cure and correct, what audit said.
Cure and correct.
Because
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, there were a few times where they didn't call me, they didn't call other people. And it's not just that, but the way, do you remember how it was at the beginning of audit and Mona calling into the meetings where they didn't have all this suppression of the public comment? They had more time to speak and things were
Right.
easier and all that.
Right.
And then they decided to move, like they always had the presentations before public comment, even though it's listed in the opposite order on the agenda. But they keep doing these things that with the timing, it's obvious because people were coming in and speaking more, and maybe it was because of Scientology, or it just the fact that people were speaking and they didn't want people to speak. And they found ways to get at the people that are speaking, make it harder, make them have to wait an hour and a half for a presentation before they speak, giving them just 1 minute, making it so that if they're talking on agenda items, you can't even listen to the agenda item first anymore. Like they found all these ways to like suppress things. Is there something more than a cure and correct that could be, like, is there a next step, a bigger step for something that's an ongoing issue that has many, many things that come from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've been very diligently, you could say, working on for this entire period. And it takes time, but I'm not going to give up my entire strategy on it. But
Yeah, don't do that.
what I'll say is I'm glad that people like yourself, Gigi, and others continue to call in and complain about the fact that they're not getting their time and the unequal treatment, because that is going to be on the record. Okay. It is so important, because if you don't do that, then the excuse will always be there. Say, well, I didn't know. We didn't see that. They didn't say nothing. So actually following through is very important. That in and of itself is enough for most people. If that's all they ever did for the rest of their lives, frankly, that's more than enough, that most people would ever do, and it is enough to actually have a winning case on. And so, my advice for people would be just continue doing that. It is very helpful. Trust me. I mean, I mentioned earlier, Gigi, it's the fact that all the pressure that people like yourself will call in, you guys saved my life. That's the reason why the order was issued, and all the email exchange and discovery showed as much as well. Okay. All of this made it into that gave me a winning outcome. And so that's why I keep saying calling in, and even if all you do is call in to make a comment, that is so freaking important. Okay. When I saw Audit LA was doing that, I wanted to do what I could to support her. But that's what matters, to actually follow through and actually do something about it, whether it be filing complaints, whether it be making public comment. Those are the things that actually matter. And that's how you actually get long term positive outcomes.
Yeah, and like persistence, that's like one of the biggest things is keep at
Very
it.
much so.
Well, I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I kind of looked at this as like a 2 hour situation. I don't want to keep you too long, but was there
I
anything
thought
we
we
didn't?
ta- I thought we covered a great deal of ground. Honestly, we talked about John McKinney. Well, that was the biggest thing that's on my radar right now. Anything that people can do, even if it's make a comment about it at Board of Public Works, go talk about John McKinney. Okay. John McKinney is a corrupt POS. Marissa Roy should win. Even if that's all people say at public comment, trust me, word spreads. Okay. And John McKinney will hear about it if he hasn't already. Politics, especially in LA, is a very small circle. And I'm telling you right now, there is literally nobody else covering LA politics except for this small social network of people that we've built up, who started out in Scientology, but really we're covering everything. We're covering everything from corruption, fraud, and more. Nobody else is building this counter narrative. And so make a comment. Say you want Mercer Roy to win, because she definitely should, and you want John McKinney to lose and investigate it. You'd be
Yeah,
surprised at the positive outcome that'll have.
and you only get a minute for most of these public comments. So it's like you don't have to have like a whole essay written or any of that. You can just I freestyle a lot of the time. Sometimes I say the same thing I said the previous week. Sometimes I get annoyed because I sound like a broken record. But a broken record is a good thing. Like even
Absolutely.
if they're not listening, annoy them and maybe they'll just want to get rid of you and fix your problem because you're annoying them too much by, just talking and saying the same thing over and over.
Absolutely. That's what it takes. Persistence is so important, and it gets you very, very far. So, and you don't need to have, yeah, this whole articulate, PhD dissertation when making public comment. A lot of people, as they go through with it, you'll find your voice. You'll learn about yourself and how you speak, the way you want to say things, and that will change from time to time. All of that is part of the process, and the best thing you can do, there's no real recipe or secret sauce. It's just going up there, having the courage to go up there and actually show up matters. Okay. That is the overwhelming majority of the hurdle, just getting to that point. And it has a lot of great long-term positive outcomes. And
And
you're looking at a guy who got those benefits because of people like yourself who called in.
Now, I focus mostly on public works because I have to do like the virtual or whatever. And that was like the only one available that I had time for. There's other ones that you could do by phone, but for a long time, you could not call into city council. And as of July 1st, they're on break now, but when they come back from break, people can call in to
Yep.
city council. And it's different because in public works, you kind of have to tiptoe and be in their purview and talk about something relating to public works in a way. You got to tie something in there. But with city council, you have so much more room to say whatever you want, and I'm glad
Yep.
that they did this, but it took them way too long. And also, they have so many people speaking in person. I think Audit tried to call in the other day and they were able to get to Laura, so that was good, but Audit didn't get called on. So don't get discouraged if you do try to, call into a meeting and, you don't get called on. I've been trying to call into the LAPD commission. I haven't spoken since what was his name? Dr. Dove, the guy that was trying to get the parade for the Martin Luther King Day. That was like a long, long time ago. And that was the last time that I was called on. Before then, the last time I spoke was when I was there for Father's Day. I went to one of the meetings there. But don't get discouraged if you don't get called on. Even just attempting to be called on is really doing something because it helps the other people calling in to know that people have their back and are joining in too, and that there's a strong, like amount of people that are calling in. It's not just one person. If there's, like 10 people that are allowed to speak in public works, but then you have 12 people calling in and two people don't get to talk, that helps other people that have called in to at least know, okay, there's even more people that, so I have to say something more, because I don't know, I can't explain it that articulately, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
it
it
helps
it builds
everybody.
like a snowball effect, right? One person talks, they offer a unique angle, and then another person has a very unique angle that they're working from, right? And then another person continues that effect. You need all of that. It's not that one person is perfect and their way is the best and only way. It's the combination, right? In military strategy, we call that overwhelming force. You have every aspect that you're attacking them from all fronts. Okay, so you need that. Maybe one person, like in city council audit LA, didn't get called on, but Laura did. And maybe you might not get called on the LAPD police commissioner for this week, but somebody else might. And so that's how it works. I know Miriam has gotten called on a bunch at LAPD commission before. I've gotten called on virtually before when I've been able to make it. That's what it takes. Okay, you have to actually be willing to try, and don't get discouraged. And you're right. Starting as of July 1st, moving on now, City Council is going to take virtual comment. And also, I'm already in the works, but Senate Bill 707 also mandated that committees also must take public comment. And yet again, the city is trying to do a whole circle jerk that, oh, no, it's just the council, not the committees. It's not true. It's the committees as well. But again, making that record, following through, being consistent, and people have the opportunity now to call in virtually at city council and let them have it too. And I think it's going to be very beautiful, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised, especially since so many people, even besides the Scientology part, but so many other people now will have a chance to call in to talk about other stuff, and you'll naturally get connected to some of these people. They'll hear what you'll have to say, and you never know, right? It's a whole cascade snowball effect, and it's a very, very good thing. So yeah, Senate Bill 707 is very powerful.
Okay, so one more time, what is your website? Auditthegovernment.org.
Yeah, auditthegovernment.org. You can find out all the articles I've written on there, and as stuff comes up, I update them. I have been keeping a profile of the different officials as well, so you can search by people like Heidi, and see all the stuff that they've done throughout uh, their history and their career. and you can learn about the Keith Mose, the director of the Board of Public Works. You
You
can
didn't
see
even
how
get to
he's
talk about him. I can't stand Keith Mose,
yeah,
but
well,
we'll
if
leave
you
that
go to
for
my
now.
website, you'll see how he's involved in this whole shit show. And all of that is for free. You'll never have to pay a dime for it. All the articles also have the documents that I use as well for the evidence. And yeah, it's all there for free.
Do you have like a Substack at all, or do you just put
I
everything
do.
on that website?
Yeah, I do. I go by audit the government on everything. So on Substack, it's just audit the government. On Twitter, I also go by audit the government. Instagram, audit the government. So I took that name. I've been working on it, but everywhere: Rumble, Twitter, Insta, TikTok, audit the government.
Okay, and is that like the only YouTube that you want to like promote? Do you have, because
Yeah.
you have multiple YouTubes? Is
Yeah,
there another one you want to?
when you visit that one, you'll see all my links. I have my link tree on there as well. So if you go to my website, you'll see my link tree. If you go to my YouTube channel, also called Audit the Government, you'll see all my other links.
And
But I go by
is there
Audit
a
the Government.
way? Is there a way on your website, if someone, is listening to this or listening to one of your streams and they have some info about something that you're working on, or they want to ask you something, or is there a way to contact you, send you an email? Do you have that information up there, or
Yep,
do you just?
yep. It's on my website. You can see my email address there, and if you don't go on my website, you can see it on my YouTube. All my contact info is on there, so people can get a hold of me.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we did this. I told you before, I did not plan. I just, was gonna do this impulsive, whatever, but I do want to plan to do this again in the future. I want to have like a part two, and we can cover, a whole lot. There's so much for us to cover.
I
This
want
was just
people
like
to
the
do
tip
more
of
of this.
the.
Yeah. I'm glad that you took the initiative, and that's what my true my true ultimate end goal was. I want people like yourself who come together and make this independent counter narrative. Right? I'd be happy to go on anybody's channel and do this sort of podcast style interview, even if it's for more specific and narrow topics and shorter time period. No problem. I'd be happy to. I can talk for hours, man. Seriously. And so this is the end goal of how you truly battle this stuff. Okay, you build this network of people and you talk about it and you build that counter narrative. And so I know there's a lot of other people that have channels just like yourself. Okay, we've all seen the list of all the different streamers. I have no problem getting on their channels and debating or just back and forth riffing. But as long as it actually serves a purpose to talk about these things in a critical detail, because that's what matters, and inspire
So you're
people to
saying,
actually take action.
even if someone has like a totally different view on something, you you would be okay just talking civilly and debating it. You don't want to go on there and argue, of course, but if someone comes at you and wants to debate it, you'd happily, go on a stream where they might have a different view about what you're talking about. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as long as the person is civil and reasonable, which again, there's people that aren't, but I have no problem with it. You might have seen those TikTokers like Parker Get a Job. I think it does a wonderful thing where he has people from the totally opposite, or even on Jubilee, they have people from totally opposite political spectrums just to even show, right? Even if it's a one off, just so you can show how very crappy the other side's position is, right? And make a public record of that. I still think that serves a purpose. But to discuss some of these political discussions, especially for LA, and then take that recipe and copy it for every other part of America or the world. I mean, I don't think what's happening in America is really all that unique from what's happening in Europe, from what's happening in other parts of the world. It's part of a bigger discussion, right? On general corruption and how people are fed up with it. People can get along and behind that message very clearly. And there are going to be people that you really shouldn't listen to. I mean, there that really have some trash, not worthy or relevant stuff that they spew. And those people are just going to continue to exist. Like, just so what? Let them. They've made it known about how much of a clown they are. Fantastic. Now we all know. Now we know to steer clear of them and have nothing to do with them. That's beautiful. I see that as a very big win. Whether people want to go and continue down that rabbit hole of people like that and, entertain them, that's on them. Those people are always going to be there, but it's good and better that you know. And I have no problem, right? I don't hate. It takes a lot to specifically hate somebody, and I frankly couldn't even be bothered. I just don't think about most people. They're not that relevant to me for me to even hate them.
Right.
So yeah.
But yeah, I guess we should just wrap this up, and I'm gonna email you. I want to do this again. I don't know when, but let's do a part 2 of this. So stay tuned for a part 2 eventually at some point. But
All right, sounds good. And I look forward to it. Appreciate you having me on, and
yeah,
thanks to the
everyone.
chat as well for tuning in.
But everyone, I'll see y'all later. And yeah, I suck at ending this stuff, but see y'all.
That's good. All right, I'll see you.